If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that everyone needs a paycheck. But there are lots of ways to earn money. What else does a business have to offer to attract employees today? How about involvement in 2 or 3,000 nonprofits over 30 years? Compensation is important, but according to Robby Brown at DOCUmation, so is culture. Welcome to BexarCast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is BexarCast, a weekly interview with business, political, education, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Robby Brown is committed both personally and professionally to leading a purpose-driven life. As part of the leadership team at DOCUmation, Robby has connected his personal mission to serve others with DOCUmation's vision to positively impact our communities. Robby holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from Abilene Christian University. He and his wife Dinah and their 2 daughters call San Antonio home. Robby, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you making the time.
Thank you so much, Randy. It's great to be with you today. I appreciate you having me on the show.
I'm glad to see you. I'm pretty sure anybody that's involved in the San Antonio nonprofit community knows about DOCUmation. It's a pretty big player in that arena. But for those who don't, DOCUmation is a family-owned technology solutions company. They provide IT, print, and software managed services to businesses and other organizations throughout Texas. And this year, in the one good thing of 2020 is that the company celebrated its 30th year, 30 years of business, and is now being run by the 3rd generation of owners, Preston and Hunter Woolfolk. You guys are so busy, so active in the community, supporting any number of nonprofits through your Service That Serves initiative. Can you tell me a little bit about the thinking about institutionalizing that program? It's one thing to say everybody go out and volunteer, but you've made it part of your culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, such kind words about us, and we certainly are just doing our part. And there's so many forerunners out there in the community that we idolize, and Hunter and Preston and myself from the leadership team. We just really want our culture to really live and breathe our mission statement, our vision, and so really summarizing it all, and as you shared, Service That Serves is really not only from what we do on a technology side, but what we do from a community standpoint. And so that looks like us being able to give whatever it might be, time, treasure, talents, in our involvement with the community. And it's a wide variety. I think to date, we have probably close to 2,000 to 3,000 nonprofits that we've had some involvement with. Wow. Over the last several years. And we're certainly proud of the legacy that we have. And you mentioned 30 years is certainly a banner year for us to really take a step back and look at what we have accomplished, right, as an organization, as a company, and what we strive to move forward to. So we've created this Service That Serves tagline to really kind of emphasize this is what we have been, and this is what we continue to be in the future.
And there's an old saying, and it's very cynical, that if you want to do good, do well, or if you want to do well, you need to do good. And yeah, okay, fair enough, but DOCUmation early on, speaking of 2020 in the pandemic, DOCUmation was designated an essential service.
Yep.
You guys were on the front lines from day one.
Right.
What did that mean to your team? Did they accept that as an opportunity to serve the community?
Absolutely. I mean, I think first and foremost, we wanted to take care of our clients, right? And that's important from a business standpoint, but right. A lot of those businesses are as well a variety of industries, right, across a whole lot of spectrum. So we saw, in some perspectives, the unfortunate side of how COVID really took a hit on some of those restaurants and a lot of the hospitality industry, right? And so those make up a lot of the businesses. So we were, doing even some simple things on those aspects of really kind of promoting them for curbside and things of that nature, and partnering with some different businesses. But on the other side, just because we're naturally involved in the community, we have a lot of clients that are our nonprofits. So we kind of were figuring out ways that we could help just promote a lot of the work that San Antonio Area Foundation was doing through their fund, and that was partnered with United Way. And certainly we were encouraging to be safe and cautious, but ways that we could serve when it came to volunteering and things of that nature. So I think we've done even more of that. Speaking of, some folks that have been really needing volunteers is San Antonio Food Bank, and they've been a long-standing partner of ours for years. So everybody saw them on, the news across the country for the work that Eric Cooper, CEO over there, and his team were doing. So I think, there's plenty of work to be done, and we're always encouraging, our team members here at DOCUmation to be involved in that.
And I want to encourage others to do that as well, to become involved in the community to the degree that DOCUmation and your team are. Where does that commitment to the community come from? I know Preston and Hunter learned it in their family. And what about culturally at DOCUmation? Is that something that is you wear that on your sleeves?
Yeah. I think it certainly starts with the family, and the family still wears that very much so. The third generation, like you said earlier, with Preston and Hunter, and they really have taken the legacy. And I'll tell you, from leadership and from my perspective, it's just something that we really feel honored in the fact that Lou and Nancy Scantlin, which Lou was the founder, and that's Hunter and Preston's grandfather. I always like to say that he built this company 30 years ago on the vehicle of philanthropy, really of the effect that really he didn't have a whole lot of reasons to continue on in business. I'm sure he may not like me saying this, but he's 83 years old. So, looking 30 years back, he was already very, very successful, widely successful across the nation with the technology dealership model that we have currently in DOCUmation. And so he just saw actually two failing businesses about 30 years ago, and he bought into it, and he just wanted to do it for philanthropy. So we live and breathe that, because it's just a place of just being able to give back. And it's really just, again, going back to our mission and our vision, it's something that we consistently are just sharing that, hey, how can you serve today? That service that serves. And so it's all about how do we serve our clients? How do we serve the community? And it's just embodied in different ways.
Well, and it's after 30 years, it's become part of the culture. It's
Right.
just ingrained at DOCUmation, and that has become a more important issue in the last few years, that young people coming out of college, people coming out of high school, going into their first job, going into their first corporation, are kind of looking at the culture. Is this someplace I
Right.
feel comfortable? Do these
Absolutely.
people have the same values that I do? Is this somewhere that I'm going to be able to, I want more than just a paycheck. I want to feel good about what I'm doing. And that culture breeds more of itself. It's a self-fulfilling, self-propagating proposition. But
Yep.
what about you personally? When you walked into DOCUmation your first day, did you already have that commitment to service? Where did you get that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what drew me. I mean, what you just described, I had a position as a account executive for a company that was in the Dallas area 5 years ago. Actually, I just celebrated 5 years the last couple of weeks. So
Right.
I've been reflecting on, why I'm here and what I've really enjoyed being here in DOCUmation. And so, I was there. I was overseeing some big accounts, and had the opportunity to move down here to San Antonio to come work for DOCUmation. And to me, it was all about sitting down and finding out that it was more than just, like you said, the paycheck, right? It was, well, we're going to really find a way to be a catalyst, right, in the community, but also from an economic development standpoint, because a lot of the impacts that we make in the community are going to develop things that are workforce related, right? And they take care of not only our team members, but the growth of our company, because we have huge aspirations to continue to grow in and throughout, San Antonio, but we're in several other markets around Texas, and we're looking for beyond. And so it's the next 30 or 50 years, right? As we're marking 50, we're putting kind of a stake in the ground of how we can really continue to model. So for me, yes, it was a natural fit. And to really tell you how the culture gets built is, Hunter and Preston identified that I was that high character person. So part of our 3 C's that we have here is character, community, customer. And so that's, again, going back to the values and missions, character is the number one thing that we see. So Early on from high school and in college, I was very, very much involved with missions, going to different places locally in the U.S. And I also went on missions to Africa with my church.
Wow.
And I certainly continue to do that to this day. I'm actually a pastor outside of what I do with DOCUmation. I'm a worship leader. And so, my heart beats for people that compassion. And then that's something personally is a conviction just because of my faith in Jesus Christ and holding steadfast to those things.
It's in the bone.
Yep.
and the reason I asked that question about corporate culture is that's one of the elements of BexarFest that we want to expose kids to. When we pair high school media production teams with nonprofit organizations, we're immersing them in that culture. They work with their nonprofit partners for several weeks on their videos, and we want them to experience that and have a basis of understanding and a basis of comparison for when they get out in the workforce. Initially, they're working in a real world situation. That's part of it, is that you are a provider and these are your clients. You need to respect them and provide the service that they're expecting. And secondly, we want to engage them with the leadership of the nonprofit organization. We want them to stand beside those people for a considerable period and see how they do things. That this is how you operate. This is your motivation. This is the culture that you're building, and you get to tell that story.
Right.
I'd like to hear your take on how that affects them from a couple of angles. I know you're not an HR person; that's not your thing, but you're in a leadership position, so you get to,
Absolutely.
you make decisions about hiring. And our young people who have had that kind of real world experience, let's take it from the work angle first, that have had real world work experience, where does that put them on the hireability scale?
I think from the perspective where I tend to hire, a lot of times I'm looking for somebody that's moldable. So experience can be helpful, right? Particularly if it's something that I'm looking to hire for, which is going to be a sales and marketing end. But at the same perspective, if I can just tell that they're going to have the knack to do that, I almost prefer to have somebody that doesn't have experience, because maybe I don't have to worry about getting those bad habits out of them.
They don't have to unlearn anything.
Right. So there's kind of a two-edged sword there on some of those processes. So I will hire somebody that might have some experience, and then sometimes I'll hire somebody that doesn't have, might be fresh out of college. And we like to do internships a lot. So that's something that I would certainly encourage anybody that is in high school or is in college. Start doing internships now and start learning what you like and don't like while you have the time, because once you get into a job, it's, as we know, Randy, really hard to get out of a job, and an employer certainly wants commitment, right? And so we certainly love to have internships, and a shout out to SA Works, and that's through San Antonio Economic Development Foundation.
Right.
The work that they do for their internships in the summer, and they work with the city of San Antonio. We plugged in with them, and there's actually some funding that comes for those internships for employers to be able to have those folks come and do those internships with us. So we certainly love to be able to engage in that way and just learn and grow together. I think that's just the biggest thing that I would kind of say from that standpoint.
And the internship angle is interesting to me because it puts students on the team. You're now you're part of the DOCUmation team for the length of your internship. And one of the unique things about BexarFest is it's a team competition. We
Right.
Most art festivals, most media festivals are individual. You are a photographer, you are a musician, but here you're counting on your teammates and you're working together and you're all pulling in the same direction. Again, how does that team experience impact their hireability?
I mean, I think you have to be able to relate to people on any level with any position that you're in, even if you're just a photographer, right? That wants to be able to do your trade, right? You have to be able to interact with businesses. You have to be able to know how to sell and interact with people, and there's got to be collaboration, right? My wife's a graphic artist, so I know that when she has to work with clients, she has to work from a team perspective. So I think we're always looking for team players, right? Even the top salesperson in our organization's got to be a team player, because it's all about team approach with winning business, with continuing to lead in a different department. So even if you're a great individual producer, we all know as you grow and want to aspire to do more in your career, there's going to be some point where it's going to be about supervising or managing or becoming into a vice president, role, or president of a company or owning a company. And people are inspired by people that lead from that perspective, that show that they care and they're not just driving the bottom line.
Well, and there's the societal aspect of what we've been talking about as well. And you mentioned it very clearly that one of the primary considerations when DOCUmation is looking at hiring someone is character.
Yep.
And so that character that these kids are observing when they're paired up with a nonprofit organization and they're immersed in that culture, they are seeing people who are acting out of compassion, acting out of empathy. I can get a paycheck. There's lots of places I can go to get a paycheck, but this is a mission that I feel drawn to, that I want to serve. How does that impact these young people when they're out in society looking for their first job, that they have been exposed to? You can be true to your character and have a job at the same time. You don't have to sell out. Talk a little bit about how DOCUmation approaches that aspect.
Right. I mean, I think it's a great question, and I think it's a really important key, I think, for everybody, whatever direction they want to go in their life to be the most successful and have the most fulfillment, is exactly the approach that we have in terms of, and the way that DOCUmation looks at it is we spend our time quite a bit with folks that we're looking to hire on as team members here at DOCUmation, because we think it's important, not for us just to have the best person, but for them to have the best fit for their career and for their path. And so it's so important for there to be the time spent in figuring out what is your long-term goal, what is it that we can do. And so even, for example, there's somebody in my organization right now that's working underneath my team, which I do have folks, I sit down with them and I say, what's your dream? Like, if I could put a piece of paper in front of you right now and you could write down what your dream is, I want you to dream with me. I want you to tell me what it is, because employers that can be able to do that, employees that can be able to have that reciprocal sort of conversation is so beneficial, because then I can know, okay, yeah, you want to use this as a platform to get here. Well, what's wrong with me understanding that and knowing that I can get you there, and how fun is it that I get to be a part of that journey? But I know as an employer now, I know as a hiring manager, that this is where I'm going to get, this person, this is where I'm going to get this person. And now I have nothing that, I'm going to be, blindsided, not right. Completely. There are some things you get blindsided no matter what, but transparency is so key. And so that's something that I think is so true for anybody to be able to know as they go in to find a place to work. And we certainly like to embody that as much as we can here at DOCUmation.
Well, and you mentioned longevity as well, that if we go in, if this relationship starts with us keeping secrets from each other, it's probably not going to work. We need to be transparent. We need to understand each other's agenda and find a place where they intersect. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's why you don't get married after a first date.
Yeah. There's some people that do, and to each their own,
Those rarely succeed.
Yeah, but I would say, I want to add though, about the character piece too, that's just really important. And that's something to reflect on as an employer, but also for people that are looking for work. I mean, we say that, but there's a lot of employers out there that are looking for that. There are companies that look for that, even if they don't say it. I mean, obviously you want highly ethical practices in your companies. If not, then there's a lot of things that can go wrong from that standpoint.
Yeah, that can get real ugly.
And so the reason why we emphasize it and we look at it is, like I said before, if somebody has experience, great. But if they have experience and they're not a character-driven person, then Randy, it's not going to be probably worth my time to even try to spend time with them, because then they're not going to be a right fit for our company, because we need the highest level of character And it's really kind of that Chick-fil-A, right? That model that they have, or Southwest Airlines, or a lot of these prestigious brands, where they really say, okay, what is it that I can do? It's my pleasure, right? It's kind of out of the box. And that's really what we are aspiring to be over here at DOCUmation. Is we're the yes company. We don't know how we're going to get it done, but we're going to find a way to get it done. And we want to hire people that are willing to be creative with us, to have fun. And, my favorite things are seeing the stories of, the airline stewardess, on the flights, and they're doing all the fun beatboxing,
Right.
and the Chick-fil-A, employees trying to find a way to make the little kid happy, by getting an extra toy or whatever it might be. They create this sort of, we're always going to go, above and beyond. And so that's actually another theme of ours, is we have above and beyond awards at DOCUmation. We actually recognize when different service folks or different logistics team members go above and beyond. So I think it's really about always reinforcing those great traits in different people, and encouraging organizations to continue to do stuff like that.
And you guys do a great job of it. You encourage each other. You encourage those of us watching. You encourage the whole city, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. That
Thank
means
you
a
for being
lot.
here. Thank you
Thank
for making
you.
the time. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for your ideas, and thanks for your positivity. We could use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we certainly want to be involved with BearFest, and we love all the things that y'all do for students, and it's a big part of the next generation. Like I said earlier, we believe in this next generation. We've certainly had a big focus on children and workforce development. So certainly appreciate the things that you do and how you work with the nonprofits. I know that it's invaluable for them because we certainly have a lot of them, like I said, that we work with that are clients. And so certainly would love to continue to stay connected and how we can just help y'all grow in the future.
I want to make sure we do, because I want DOCUmation on our team. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks, Robby. Take care.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it.